open borders, shameful abandonment, disregard for human life, the prospect of more mandates and lockdowns, and the list goes on. Now more than ever, we need to stick together. Voting alone is not enough. We must use our dollars to support like-minded companies that fight for our rights and beliefs. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider who shares your values. Last year, we gave more than $500,000 to conservative causes. With your support, we'll give more than $1.5 million this year. It's time to band together and support companies that truly love America and fight for our freedoms. Will you join us?
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right, welcome to the program. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, with my co-host Debbie Robbins and, of course, Bob Scott, who's on the line. Whoa. Yeah, we're going to start the open twice because it's such a good show. We're going to double up the fun here. So welcome to the program today. We hope to have T.J. Roberts on with us. We're waiting for him to dial in. But, of course, getting these state reps, on the program, we found this time of the year, this time in history, it's difficult. Oh, great. Okay, great. So he's here. So he's dialing in, and so we're anxious to talk to him. TJ's one of the up and coming state reps in the in this state, and just putting forth some really interesting bills. Kind of has his thumb on the pulse of sort of the MAGA populist sort of approach to things, and so we're really glad to have him. He's really big on immigration, just a lot of cool bills. And so, okay, we'll go. Hey, TJ, we're going to bring you in. So welcome to the program. Thanks for being on. I know it's been a busy time down there in Frankfurt with everything, so we appreciate your time. So we wanted to go over and talk about just some of the bills you presented. And what's being what are you kind of pushing today? Because it seems like every time I go on X, you've got a new bill that you put out there that I'm like, yes, this is awesome. But and so you've got a lot of them out there. So what are you really kind of championing right now and kind of pushing through the legislature?
Well, thank you, Tom, for having me on. Few of the things that I've been able to get through, one is already on the governor's desk and two's in the Senate. And I have a few more that I'm working on. And I did just file something today that I would love to discuss as well. Right now, House Bill 1 is on the governor's desk. That was myself and Representative Kim Mosier.
That's right.
House Bill 1 is education freedom for all.
That's right.
It's opting into the One Big Beautiful Bill's education freedom tax credits, which allows for people to donate as much money as they want, but they can claim up to a $1,700 tax credit for donations that they made to a scholarship granting organization in order to assist children who have educational needs that are not being currently met in Kentucky. And this is a lawful way to ensure that every parent has a choice in terms of how they educate their children without using any state tax dollars. It's just using a federal tax cut. And this is one of the most important bills that we can do. We owe it to our children to ensure that whether they're going to public, private, parochial, or homeschool, that Kentucky has their backs. So that's the one that's on the governor's desk. I also have House Bill 84 that is in the Senate right now. And House Bill 84, I think, is critical in as far as making sure that no matter where you are, the right to be safe on your property is protected. We have an old law on the books that says that if a city has notice and the city has the means to protect property owners in the middle of a riot, they must do so. And if they don't, and you're an innocent bystander and you or your property is damaged in that riot, you can sue the city for the damages. But our Kentucky Supreme Court held that that law, for some reason, does not apply to Louisville. House Bill 84 just makes clear that this applies across the board to all local governments. It's a very simple fix. And then finally, I have House Bill 422, which is Logan's Law, to ensure that child killers don't walk our streets ever again. This was in response to the killing of Logan Tipton, a 6-year-old child that was viciously murdered, and a jury just carried out one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in our nation's history. And Logan's Law is designed to make sure that that never happens again.
Yeah, that's great stuff, and that's just a few of many that I've seen you put up there. But those are the three that are really getting some traction and seem to be moving forward. So, and we only have 30 seconds left in this segment. We're going to come back after this break. I want to talk more about HB1 and see where we're at in that process. That is a huge deal for Kentucky. We're finally bringing school choice to Kentucky. We're going to get it. And despite the teachers' unions, obstructionism, we're going to have this. And it's thanks to legislators like you. So we'll be right back here at Kentucky's Voice with TJ Roberts, and we're going to unpack what's going on in the current session. A lot of cool things, and this guy's one of the reasons. So we'll be right back.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush. We also have Debbie Robbins and Bob Scott, and we also have you, because we want you to participate in this program, and here's how you can participate. You can use your phone. You can text us questions live while we're on the air. We produce this program every day, Monday through Friday from 11 to noon. And so if you're listening to us on WGTK or streaming online, you can text us a question right away. And we love to hear those thoughts. And so tell us what you think of the legislature right now, how things are going there. But we're back to TJ Roberts, our special guest. So TJ, HB1, we've covered this a lot on the program. This is going to bring school choice to Kentucky using the Big Beautiful Bill, federal program that allows people to use a federal tax credit or tax deduction, based on giving that tax deduction to a nonprofit scholarship organization, and then those organizations can fund school choice. First of all, do you see that passing and getting through the Senate? 'Cause I think it's already passed the House.
So House Bill 1 has passed the Senate. It's
Oh, it
on the
has.
governor's
Okay.
desk.
Oh, it is. That's right. Okay.
I have no doubt he's going to veto it, and I look forward to overriding his veto. I hope we do it the same day he vetoes.
Yeah, very good. You feel like we have the votes to do that at this point? Yeah.
I know we have the votes to override his
Okay,
veto
good
on
deal.
this.
So it's happening.
The bill is bipartisan.
Yeah.
I want to chime in real quick on this with regard to that last comment. There is going to be zero doubt that he's going to veto it, simply because he is in the back pocket of the education
Teachers unions. Yeah.
teachers unions. That's the word I was searching for. So good for you, Representative Roberts. This is something, to me, this is a no-brainer. I can't even begin to understand why anybody would be against it. And I believe there are even some Democrats, correct me if I'm wrong, there aren't many, on the other side in the legislature, but even some Democrats are signing on with this. Is that correct?
That's correct. In the House, 10% of the Democrat caucus voted yes on this bill. In the Senate, it was 1/6 of the Democrat caucus voted yes on this. So this is a bipartisan bill. And also, to that point, every public school educator that's in the General Assembly voted yes on this bill. Every single one of them.
That's wonderful.
Because this actually benefits every student, no matter where you go to school.
That's great.
We see better performance out of public schools in states that have choice. Just plain and simple.
I have a quick question. Is this, when you say that it is it's a tax credit. Is this permanent? Like even after President Trump is out of office, is this a permanent tax credit? Or because the Supreme Court here in Kentucky, struck this down a couple weeks ago foolishly, the law that you all had passed. And so is this permanent?
So this is permanent so long as Congress continues to extend these. Now, I am hopeful that this will be a permanent thing, but that's one of the reasons why it's so important that we make sure that the House and Senate remains red. And that's because if we lose the House and we lose enough votes in the Senate, every provision of the big beautiful bill, whether it's the provisions you love, the provisions you didn't love so much. Personally, the school choice provision is easily in my top 5 provisions of this bill. And there are Democrats in Congress who don't oppose that specific provision, but they're not going to be looking to make policy. They're going to be looking to exact revenge. So it's permanent until Congress repeals it. And I'm hopeful Congress does the right thing and keeps it on the books forever.
Oh, that would be great.
I've got a fun clip I wanted to play. I found this on X the other day. It was you and Senator Moser, or maybe no, actually Representative Moser, and he asked a question about some of the tax implications of this. And so, Mr. Producer, I'm going to play this right now. And do we have?
So therefore, the state treasury then would not receive your tax liability of $2,800. All that the state treasury will receive would be $1,100. Isn't that correct?
That is not correct under subsection B2 of the statute, where it makes clear that for an in-state, this is not to be applied to your gross income on that, so your tax liability remains the same. That's further mentioned in subsection E of 26 U.S.C. 25F to make clear that for in-state, it is not a charitable contribution for purposes of calculating gross income.
Are you finished, Senator Thomas?
There we go. I had to play that. It was a longer clip. We didn't have time to play the whole thing, but basically he comes up with this real long question about this is going to be totally wrong. It's going to affect everybody's taxes and da-da-da-da. And I just really appreciate the way you answered him. It was very just calm and direct, and he was left speechless. It was great. It was a good moment.
Yeah, and this was in my view, that question was designed to try to create a false suggestion that by having this federal tax credit, it's going to affect our state level of funding for education. Right. And that's one of those things of it, at least in the public law school that I went to, we were taught in trial practice to not ask a question we don't know the answer to.
Yeah. Right. At the very least, yeah.
I would urge my colleagues that voted no on House Bill 1 to understand that what you voted to do is you voted to defund public schools with this when you voted no on that bill. Yeah. Because this bill is simply about opting into a federal tax credit program that, by the way, every Kentuckian can already donate to. There is nothing in the law that says your state has to opt in before you can donate. All that the opt-in does is it allows for Kentucky students to receive the benefits of those donations. So I can already donate to an SGO in Colorado and Indiana, but I don't want to. I want to support a Kentucky student. But that said, if House Bill 1 doesn't become law, you better believe I'm not going to pass up the opportunity to keep money out of Washington, D.C. My money will go to a scholarship granting organization. And the no's was just a vote to hurt students. And that's one of those things that was just so frustrating is I think about the remarks from Democrat Governor Jared Polis in Colorado, where he said it would be crazy not to opt in because it's more money. We're leaving that money on the table. And that is money that can be used to help Kentucky kids.
Right.
And that's where the partisanship has just gotten extraordinarily out of hand, because this should have been one of those things that everyone should have been able to come together on.
Exactly right. And I'll echo that. Basically, if your kid does get the scholarship, the tax money that was set aside to pay for his education in the public system doesn't go away. It's still there. It's still there in the public system. So actually, there's now more dollars to go around per pupil with this program, even in the public system. So it helps the public system as well as the, assuming money helps the public system, which it doesn't, but still.
Well, Senator Thomas, it's interesting. I think TJ was being a little coy there with his words. He has his law degree from, guess where? Harvard. And so he should have done better research. He's from over in Lexington. It was a bit ridiculous, but they do it all the time. Again, we know the Democratic Party as a whole tends to operate and play the fear card, and the doubt card, that it's going to cost us in some way, if we do this. And as I see it, and I'm not the brightest guy in the world, I'll be the first to admit it. My wife will agree with that. This is something that's a no-brainer. There is absolutely no reason whatsoever that our governor should veto this, but we know he will, because we know he's owned by the unions, the teachers union specifically. So Godspeed, Representative Roberts, and thank you for getting it to this point. And it's awesome. That it's exactly where it needs to be.
Let me follow up with this question too, TJ or Senator or Representative Roberts. Do you feel like there are SGOs, these nonprofit scholarship organizations spinning up here in Kentucky to prepare for this? Do you see any signs of that,
I know that there are. So there were SGOs set up in light of the passage of House Bill 563 in 2021.
Okay.
They still exist. They're just not operating. So that infrastructure is already there.
Okay.
And I want to close out the school choice discussion with just a very quick point.
Please.
For people who maintain that you should be against school choice because it's going to hurt public schools, in my opinion, if that is the belief that you have, you don't actually believe in public schools. You're going off of this argument that people are going to leave public schools if given the decision. And there's a baked in premise there that I don't actually accept, because I went to public schools from first grade through 12th grade, unlike the governor who went from kindergarten to 8th grade at an extremely expensive private school.
Right.
But you don't believe in these public schools because you're saying that if parents have a choice, they won't go to public schools. And that, if anything, that's a spit in the face to public education to make that claim that, oh, no parent would willingly send their child there. So it just doesn't, it's not a good argument. It's an anti-education argument across the board to be against this.
That's a very wonderful point, a very nuanced point, but it's very poignant because it shows that they don't have confidence in their own system that they're purporting to put on your kids. So that's a very, very good point. So if you could stay with us one more segment, we'd appreciate it. If you can't, we understand, but hopefully we'll be back with TJ Roberts and talking about what's going on in Frankfort here on Kentucky's Voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, one of your hosts today, Tom Fallbush. We have a great guest today, TJ Roberts, Representative TJ Roberts. He's putting forth a lot of interesting bills in the legislature in Frankfurt this session, and I'm going to go right to this one that I think is one of the funnest. And as a Kentuckian, everybody here, this state was founded by Daniel Boone, right? It was founded by hunters, founded by people that appreciated firearms, right? I think all of us in the crib were kind of. If you're a Kentuckian, it's in your blood. We like our shooting and our shooting sports and hunting and all that, and Second Amendment for other reasons. So TJ, I think you're putting forth a bill to legalize full auto weapons, full auto machine guns, basically, and which. And let me say this before you get into it too much, which I think it's about time. Technology has changed enough to where, where you have these force reset triggers now that are available for even semi-automatic weapons. So they're practically, the NFA, the National Firearms Act, is basically irrelevant now with a lot of the newer technologies out there. So it's what's the point at the end of the day to even have a ban on this stuff? But anyway, what are your thoughts on that, and tell us how it's being received?
Sure. So far, it's been quite well received. I've got a few co-sponsors on it. So House Bill 749 uses a provision under federal law that specifically says that state governments can sell machine guns to their citizens who are otherwise lawfully able to own a gun. And this is notwithstanding this is notwithstanding the 1986 Hughes Amendment. So it doesn't matter when the machine gun was manufactured either.
Oh,
And
good.
the way I look at it is as simple as this. The founding fathers and their contemporaries were clear that the Second Amendment means that anyone in America is entitled to, as Tench Cox put it, the same terrible instrumentalities as that of an infantryman.
Right.
And the reality is, law-abiding Americans, it doesn't matter what weapon they have, they're not going to break the law with it.
Right.
And so I understand the concerns about the use of Glock switches on the streets of Louisville, but that said, I'm not a danger with these things.
Right.
I'm not a danger on those. So I believe that there is a avenue under federal law, and the Department of Justice agrees with me, that will allow us to bring these products to market, to make it to where you don't have to be ultra wealthy in order to own a machine gun. That is your Second Amendment right. And we can also raise pretty significant revenue by doing this as well. Move us closer to abolishing the income tax without raising other taxes by simply entering this market. And West Virginia is doing this too. It just passed out of a committee there.
That's right. That's right. So we'll be the state selling the firearm to the individual. And will the firearm still be owned by the state, or will it be owned by the individual? I think in West Virginia, it's like a lease model, right? The state is leasing it to the person or something. But is that how that works here?
So theirs is a lease model. Mine is a sale model.
Okay.
And I'm good with either, because it would practically be the same thing. You still have a property interest in it.
That's right.
And that's one of those things of this was a relatively rushed bill whenever the Department of Justice submitted their brief that said, yes, this is legal. So I'm obviously still looking to do tweaks to it to see how we can get this moving. Ideally, I'd like to get this passed in the 2027 session, especially, so that way we can actually start to restore the Second Amendment rights of Kentuckians.
Beautiful. All right, Debbie, lock and load. Here we go. This is going to be great. This is going to be a good moment for.
Hey, I'm a girl here, so I told them last week I took my very first shooting lesson ever, but I
she
really
was good,
appreciate.
actually.
Yes, and so from what I'm understanding, has this been an interest of people that have approached you about this, or is this mainly to help us out with tax incentives? But of course, I'm totally Second Amendment rights oriented. So would you mind just elaborating one more little bit?
Sure. Yeah, and this is a both and for me. So for one, I ran on absolutely with no compromise protecting the Second Amendment rights of Kentuckians. And so that is part number one, and that is priority number one for me. But I also ran on getting us into that position to where we can finally abolish the income taxes without tax trade-offs. And this isn't a tax because it's just a simple entering the market where the state itself is the seller. So I'm good with both of these motivations for doing it. One of the things that I've always said to colleagues, I'm not concerned about why you're voting yes or no on these bills. I just care that you vote yes or no. If you're doing it for the Second Amendment reasons that I care about, great. If you're doing it about the revenue area, also great. A yes on the voting board is a yes on the voting board. It doesn't say yes and here's why.
Good deal. We have about 4 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get to a couple other topics here. And so, Bob and I and Debbie were talking about a lot of immigration issues over the past few episodes, and you sponsored a bill that forces the state police to work with ICE, and so and some other bills related to that. So, can you share what's the progress of those efforts, and what's the point of those bills?
Yeah, House Bill 47, it requires KSP to enter into a 287G task force model. So what this does, that makes it to where KSP receives training from ICE, and upon completion of that, they are able to access the Department of Homeland Security database. They're able to issue immigration detainers themselves. They're also able to take illegal immigrants to immigration facilities for deportation as well. So there's several benefits to this. For one, more access to more information so they know who they're dealing with when they encounter a suspect better. Number two, it ensures a good partnership with the fact that a nation without borders is not a nation at all, and that we are able to do this. And it sends a message that we as a Commonwealth care about the integrity of our borders. Further, there's a residual benefit. I didn't really care about this until I saw how much of local government budgets are going toward our jails. It helps clear out our jail population, so that way we can actually, so these folks aren't getting 3 hots on a cot every day while we're waiting for a federal agency that only has 20,000 agents to come down from Chicago to pick someone up, where we can get them out of Kentucky faster so they're no longer a burden on our tax base. And that's one of the things. ICE only has 20,000 agents. We envisioned in the 1996 INA that state and local governments can partner with us, with the federal government, to be able to take this on, particularly with the criminals, because that's one of the issues, right? The immigration enforcement duties only kicks in the scope of the daily duties of KSP. And that's why I focus on KSP in the bill. The big problems we see with illegal immigration in terms of crime area is human trafficking and drug trafficking. Our highways do that. Who's the agency responsible for overseeing our highways? KSP.
Gotcha.
And I also made it to where if a local department enters into a 287G task force program, which, by the way, I would encourage it because there is significant federal funding attached to doing it with almost no strings attached, it waives the training requirement for those officers for our state level training. So they take the federal training. That's enough to satisfy that year's state training requirement.
Quick question. I have a friend who met someone in the sheriff's department last week, and he told him, he said, if I stop someone and they're an illegal alien, I can't even, if they have a license that's not valid, I can't arrest them. I can't do anything about it. That's infuriating, and that's here in Jefferson County. Why is that happening? And I appreciate this being the Kentucky State Police, but it really needs to be our local also as well.
So by the way, for Harrison County, they are more than welcome to enter into a 287G program right here, right now. My bill just creates more incentives to do so. So whether House Bill 47 moves or not, if there's a law enforcement officer who has sway with their head of their department or their city council or their elected sheriff, they can contact me at 859-446-0185, and I will connect them with the Intergovernmental Affairs Director at ICE so they can get into a 287G program and get this federal funding and get access to this means to make Kentucky a safer place. I am more than happy to do that.
Wonderful. Well, great.
Thank
Well,
you.
TJ, thanks for being with us today. Godspeed. We're going to encourage our viewers to call and support your bills. So we'll do that after this segment. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for being on Kentucky's
Please
Voice.
come
We'll be right
back.
back. TJ's audio too. Okay. Bob, drop yours.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We just had a great couple of segments there with TJ Roberts, and we were able to convince him to stay one more segment. So we got one more segment, and we actually have a bunch of texts that have come in from the viewers. So we thought we'd just go right to those because a lot of what he's putting forth are very popular ideas and concepts and issues, and so a lot of questions coming in. So we encourage you to send your question 502-571-0970, 502-571-0970, and Bob, we're going to go to you. You can fill those questions for TJ.
Yeah, one of the questions that came in, and again, thank you for taking the time to text this into us. They're wanting to know the bill number for Logan's Law. They were very interested in that. So if you could share that with our listeners.
So House Bill 422 is Logan's Law, and just a quick rundown of what it does. It actually adds sanity to our insanity defense, where we had the loosest insanity defense in the entire country. It bans split verdicts, requires consecutive sentencing for violent crimes that carry multiple victims, and it also finally allows juries to sentence intentional murderers to life without the possibility of parole, regardless of the presence of aggravators. Kentucky was one of the few states where if you murdered someone, you could not get life without parole unless there was an aggravator, which is insane to me. I think killing a Kentuckian is aggravator enough. So that's just a very quick rundown on that. It also prevents early release for violent felons who are denied parole.
And what's your feeling about that law actually making it through?
I mean, we passed it out of the House with only one no vote. More than a majority of the House of Representatives co-sponsored the bill. I like our odds. We've just got to get it rolling in the Senate.
Okay. And next question, I'm going to do my best to decipher this, but it says, if and when Metro Louisville becomes
responsible
to reimburse property owners for damage from protesters, it will be paid for by taxpayers. Is this a good reason for voters to elect a mayor that will protect their property by way of controlling protesters with law enforcement?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the entire problem, that in the scope of my practice, I take on a lot of cases against local governments, and part of me gets uneasy because I'm like, ultimately this is going to be the taxpayer, but that's where qualified immunity is an issue with the individual actors being shielded from liability. But with the taxpayer one, yes, in my view, if we as a taxpayer base don't want to be held on the hook for these issues, we have to get better at electing people who are going to respect the Constitution, who are going to respect the laws of the Commonwealth. And the reality is this: these businesses have to have recourse somewhere.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There's
And I
Yeah.
do have another question
Go
after
ahead.
this comment. Actually, two more questions to come up. This was from one of our listeners. The Dem was a testament to public education's efficacy. They made a statement: burn the system down. So, what's your thoughts about that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, this is one of those things. It's interesting because that goes to my point. Everyone has different education needs. A whole lot of students are going to be just fine in public schools. A whole lot of students will be just fine in private schools, homeschool, parochial. But no universe will create a singular school system that works for every student. And that's why I believe that parents ultimately need to be in charge of their child's education. And House Bill 1 draws that balance to ensure everything is in good shape on it. And, I mean, I went to public law school, and the senator went to private law school. And I think we saw there, at least one of us knew to read federal law before
There we
trying
go.
to opine about it.
And the final question, and this has been a series of hot debate, even amongst us as a team. We're all strong Trump supporters, all of us. I know you are as well. Okay.
Mhm.
I also know that you're probably one of the strongest Thomas Massey supporters out
Here
there,
we go.
as well as, quite frankly, I have been too.
All right.
But there are some within the camp that aren't so sure about Massey with regard to being reelected, obviously, because obviously President Trump has come out so strongly against him. There is an element of people out there that feels that he opposes everything that Trump does, which I know, and I think simply not the truth. But could you share with our audience a little bit? Because again, you're probably one of the strongest Thomas Massey supporters I know.
Yeah. So when I almost went to jail for going to church, thanks to this lawless governor that we have in Kentucky, I was truly alone. I had Daniel Cameron as AG helping out a little bit on the side. I had Savannah Maddox trying to push legislation to put a stop to this. Otherwise, I was alone, except for one voice at the federal level, and that was Thomas Massey. One of the bravest moments in American history I saw was on March 27th, 2020, when he forced the vote when he opposed what was said to be the largest spending bill in American history. He was attacked by all angles. Nancy Pelosi called him the most hated, I called him a dangerous nuisance. CNN called him the most hated man in Washington, D.C., which CNN finally reported something correctly there. But to that point, look, I don't agree with anyone 100% of the time ever.
Exactly.
There's been one being that has walked this earth that I've agreed with 100% of the time. He walked the earth over 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
He died for our sins and defeated death, hell, and the grave. And I treat both Donald Trump and Thomas Massey to that standard that I don't agree with anyone 100% of the time. I look at the idea, not the person promoting the idea. There are things that I agree with Trump on that Thomas Massey disagrees on. There are things I agree with Thomas Massey that Donald Trump disagrees on. Just because I have disagreements here and there doesn't mean that they lose my support. I ultimately support both of them because I know with Thomas Massey, I am getting someone who will exercise independent judgment and will not sell his voter card to anyone. That way, I know as a resident of the 4th Congressional District, I have a voice in Washington, D.C. I don't like rubber stamps. I just don't. That's not my way of legislating. The people of the 66th House District didn't send me here to just do whatever a specific special interest group wants, what a candidate for governor wants, what a member of leadership wants. That's not what I was sent here to do. I have 45,000 bosses at home. And I look to that in Congress as well. And I look to what Thomas Massey's doing, sponsoring national constitutional carry, the Epstein file release, which I think is actually an incredibly important issue, especially when you talk about the day-to-day conversations. I mean, just yesterday, 2 days ago, Congress just voted to conceal their own sexual harassment claims. That's insane to me. We have to do better. And so I'm going to continue to support President Trump. I'm going to continue to support Thomas Massey, and I'm going to let the cards fall as they may in so doing.
I could not have said it any better, Tom.
Oh, great. Okay, so now, now I'm the guy that's skeptical of Massey, so now I've got to respond to this. Okay. Well, let me say I tend to agree with him. However, there is a big picture here of this counter-revolution, of this MAGA movement, of this. Yeah, we can all disagree on some level, but there's a point where we all got to come together as a team and move the ball forward. And it seems like we've got to. I don't know enough about his personality to kind of understand whether he's doing this purely on principle, or is he offended enough by Trump to where he wants to be an obstructionist, or is he kind of showboating a bit because he wants to be a national figure? A lot of people just do this to get a lot of attention. So I don't know. I haven't come down on either side of that, but I've got questions about all that. But,
I have those same questions, Tom, because that's where I am, and being a mature woman. Mom, and been around on this planet even longer than Thomas Massey. I've just felt that it's been an obstruction issue for me, or a pride issue. And of course, Jesus is my king. No one is the king but Jesus. So if it's purely from his heart and it's purely from what he believes, great. But I lost interest when he did not come out in support of the president in 2020 with the election fraud and the halting of potentially, some of the electors. And I know that's a big contention. And I know you're a lawyer, TJ, and I'm not. My husband is, but I'm not. But that is a huge issue for me. It's all about pride. It's all about pride. If you can be humble and use your wisdom and lead us, which is desperately what we need. And I see that in you, and I really thank you for that. I thank you for your honesty and your integrity here. And I'm so thankful that you're in the position you are. And just don't ever forget, you said, you have 45,000 bosses.
That's right.
You're right.
We're not going to make this a tag team wrestling match
No,
today.
we're
going to
not.
let TJ have the last word on this.
Yes.
So TJ, back to just if you want to.
Yeah, just a really quick thing to that question, because I've known Thomas for years. He doesn't take things personal. It is out of principle. And the way that I can assure you of it, look to his voting record when Barack Obama and Joe Biden were president as well. He voted against spending bills then as well. He voted against wars then as well. And so when we look to those issues, right, what you can see is there's an air of consistency. And so that should be a signal that it's not about personality issues, because Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, all three have very different personalities. I think it's very obvious which personality I personally prefer.
Yeah.
But despite those major personality differences among those three, Thomas Massey's voting record is virtually identical across all three of those presidencies.
Well, I think probably what we all need to do is make sure, as you said, that we overwhelmingly re-elect our Congress and add to the red numbers this fall. That's critical.
Absolutely. And boy, did Congress just get a huge addition last night with the absolute scumbag Tony Gonzalez dropping out. There is now a major champion in Texas named Brandon Herrera, who is the Republican nominee.
He's awesome. Yeah.
And goodness gracious, you want to talk about a firebrand who is going to make this next generation of conservatism win? Brandon Herrera is the future.
He's awesome. Yeah, and he's also a very popular YouTuber. He's a gun tuber, as they say. He's one of those guys that I enjoy watching as well. Hey, TJ, thank you for being on. Thank you for giving us 3 segments today. Godspeed. We're going to encourage people to support your bills, and we'll give you the phone number here in the next segment.
1-800-372-7181.
That's right. Say it one more time.
1-800-372-7181. Call your Kentucky
Very good.
legislature.
Great.
You're awesome, TJ. God bless you.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to get off here and do this meeting.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We want to appreciate TJ Roberts for coming on. Remember, call this number. We want this show to be more than just entertainment and information. We want it to inspire you to do things. We want you to be an activist, because that's the only way we're going to change things. If you stand up, you, the grassroots, stand up and do something. That's how we're going to save this country, is you and I doing it. And I'm not a professional broadcaster. I don't do this for a living. I just do a lot of sales and business stuff. But we're learning how to do this because we know somebody's got to do this. Somebody's got to do this locally and have a voice for Kentucky, because, these big corporate media entities aren't going to do this. So you got to do something too. You got to call. Very least you can do is call Frankfurt and support some of these bills. So here's a phone number: 800-372-7181. 800-372-7181. Call and say, I want to support TJ Roberts' full auto bill, support his
Logan's bill, which is 422.
Logan's bill 422. What was HB 539, which is Bill Wesley's Sharia bill. And what was the let's see, what was HB 1? Well, actually, it's already passed. That's already done.
That's on the desk.
It's done. Okay. Well, have them support the overriding, the
HB
veto.
84 to be safe on your property.
Safe on exactly, HB 84. But anyway, just call and just support. You just describe the bills you're trying to support. You have to know the numbers to say, the bill that's talking about this, and they'll know what you mean. So anyway, we encourage you to do that.
HB 539 and HB 867, don't want to forget it. It's a very important one that'll basically ban men from going into women's bathroom facilities.
That's it. A lot. They need to hear you. Even though we have a Republican majority, they need to know that the public supports them. They get a little nervous when it comes to controversial issues because they know they're going to get bad press. And so they need to know that my base, Republican base in this state, supports this, so I'm going to be confident to make that vote. Because it's not enough just to put them in office. You've got to kind of put some wind in their sails to kind of get them to do the right thing. And so, so make that call. Okay, we've got a really good clip we're going to play. We want to talk about this after we play this clip. So this is about Mondani and socialism. So
we are going to freeze the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants, build housing for everyone who needs it, to eliminate the fare on every single bus line, and create universal childcare at no cost to parents, so New Yorkers can raise their family in the city they love.
A few moments later.
In order to get to this point,
of closing the gap on both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we are forced to raid the rainy day fund, the retiree health benefits trust reserve, and to increase property taxes across these other years.
So all right, so everything's free. We're gonna make housing affordable. Buses are free. Government controlled grocery stores. It's all gonna be low cost. And then immediately, like within months of getting elected, man, I'm really sorry. We need to raid hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever, from the rainy day fund. And we need to raise your property taxes 9.5%. What you're getting here is the greatest enemy of progressivism is reality. Christians need to get their head around this. Watch this. Not just societies, but cities. As godliness decreases, socialism increases. There is an actual spiritual and logical connection between those things. That is always true. Historically, globally, whenever godliness decreases, socialism increases. Why? There's two reasons for that. First of all, when you subtract God from a society, then the government becomes God. Somebody's got to be at the top of the org chart. You subtract God, government becomes God, and people start looking to the government to do what Christians historically trust God to do. You also notice this, that in every society, less God requires more government. When you have a nation full of Jesus worshiping, spirit filled, Bible believing, and Bible obeying people, guess what you don't need a whole lot of? Police. When you've got a nation that are spirit filled people, they're reading verses like, hey man, if a guy won't work hard and provide for his family, he's worse than an unbeliever, so get out there and have a Protestant work ethic. Guess what you don't need a ton of? Government welfare. When you've got a nation that's full of spirit filled people that they actually want to conduct their lives and their businesses with integrity and scrupulousness, guess what you don't need a ton of? Government regulation. Whenever there is a rise in godlessness, it requires a rise in government to stem the tide of rising evil that results from the godlessness. Less God always requires more government, and as godliness decreases, socialism increases. I will just point this out. The same people who laugh at you guys for believing in an all-powerful, all-good God, they think, man, if we just made the government all-powerful, it'd be all good. I just want to point that out, okay? So subtract God, government becomes God.
There we go. And it can be summed up by this quote from one of our founding fathers. I think it's John Adams said this: "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." And that guy just summarizes it right there. If you don't have good people.
That's Josh Howerton, who is the pastor of one of the largest churches in Dallas, Texas, Lake Point. And I love him. I mean, he's from Kentucky too, by the way. Go figure.
There we go.
You know, and just the guy speaks truth in such a simple, concise manner. And Tom and Debbie, didn't it strike you all? I mean, what really hit me of everything that he said, of course, everything he said was true, 100%. But where there is less God, there is going to be more government, more socialism, more communism. You know, that's going to come into it. But where you have accountability, where there is God, you know, in a society that's saying, yeah, if you're a man, especially, you need to work, you know, and go out and make a living to support you and your family, you know, and not taking free handouts. It is such an easy principle to understand, and one that we as a nation, we as a people, we as a state need to grab onto and realize that we don't want socialism. And there's been polls that have come out that, especially among Generation Z, socialism has become more and more popular, you know, until reality hits them, and they'll be the first one standing up and crying and say, oh my, just like Mandami is doing in New York City.
Raising taxes. Yeah, here's all this free stuff, but a few weeks later, well, we need some taxes raised to cover this stuff. And it's like
9.5% on your property.
That's right, 9.5%. Yeah, that's
right. I was raised in a family. My dad was a self-made businessman. He came from Western Kentucky, from a little bitty town. He came to Kentucky, or to Louisville, on a wagon with his parents when he was 14 years old. He's going to be 92 this summer. And he always inspired me because of his entrepreneurialism. And I want, and my son, you know, he gets to talk with him about business. It's just so wonderful to know that in America, this is the place where we are free, where we need to make our own way. But absolutely, anytime, I see it all the time, especially with my Facebook friends, some of them that are on the liberal left side, it's just sad. It's truly sad that government is their God. It's very disheartening. I don't understand.
Let me just add on to what one of our viewers, listeners, text, and it said, Islam is not a religion. Listen very carefully to this.
Oh.
It's not a religion. It's a total control form of government.
That's right.
A lot like socialism. Exactly.
Right.
What Josh Harrington was just talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's
Absolutely.
really
Yeah, then another text came in and said, what Adams meant is not necessarily religion, is Christianity. He meant Christianity, and because he knows that that's what without America wouldn't have come from a Muslim religious tradition. It wouldn't have come from a Hindu religious tradition. If it would have, they would have developed a Republican democracy in the Middle East 200 or 300 years ago. Well, they didn't, because Islam doesn't celebrate that. It came from a Christian, Judeo-Christian heritage and Western heritage, and actually specifically English heritage, if you want to get real down to it. Something unique about the British Isles, the way freedom developed there, and and so we're very blessed to be descendants of that political and cultural tradition, and so
when
our founding fathers.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
No, they understood perfectly. The effects that Islam in general, from the standpoint of going after the Barbary pirates, who were Islamic Muslims that were pillaging, raping merchants in that part of the world back in the 1700s. And what did they do? We had the Marine Corps, and they sent the Marines, over to deal with that and bring some order and some stability, and I might even argue some good old fashioned moral Christian ethics and virtues to that part of the world.
I just want to say again, I want to talk to the listeners again and say, this is about us. This is our nation. We are in the most beautiful nation on the planet. We've got to defend our religious freedom. I really want to implore you not to just be wherever you are, taking advantage of this day. I do too. I waste so much time. But when I know that I need to take action. And I really want you to call, our legislative hotline for these bills that are so important, especially the one about Sharia laws. We're sitting here talking about this. We have to protect our Christian faith. We have to ask our pastors, like this young man we just heard, preach the gospel. And now they have the right to even tell us, to say, this particular person who wants to lead and who wants to make absolutely critical decisions about your life, you need to vote. Think about who you're voting for and why. And I want them to say that from the pulpit. I really do now. And if that means if you're on the other side of the political aisle and you want to leave, then leave. Go find a church where they believe what you say. But God's word is preeminent. God's principles, our nation was built on God's principles. It's okay to speak up. So speak up in a loving way or or even in a strong way. But I want you to listen to what we've been saying all week long, all of these issues. They really get my heart burning. And I love Jesus and I love the Word of God. But the people that make a difference in my life every day, where I can turn around and make a difference in others, they have to be held accountable. I want to be in a free nation where I can still share the gospel and not be afraid. So I want you call 1-800-372-7181. And just say, hey, I don't remember the name of the bill, but this is what it is about, like Tom said and Bob said, and say, I want our legislators to support it because they need to know that we're behind them so they can be courageous, strong and courageous. Okay, that's what I'm. That's
great.
About
it. I love it. I love it. Self-government requires a moral people. That's the bottom line, and a moral and religious people. You can't just have morality without a religious tradition behind that, and a Christian tradition primarily, and because that's what it takes. And so because we're going to be governed one way or the other. It's either going to be because when you don't have morality in a society, things break down, and guess what? People demand. They demand order. They demand stability. They will demand a dictatorship. They will demand authoritarianism, and they will demand Caesarism. That's what happened in Rome. We got so much chaos. We need a Caesar, boom, and then you get a dictator. So if you want to maintain your democracy, your Republican form of democracy, then you need a moral, religious people. So that's why you see as Europe has drifted away from its religious heritage. It's become more and more left-wing, more and more socialist. They're having less kids. They're inviting in Islam, and it's going to be a destructive future for them, unfortunately, because with all the strife that's going to occur. So hope it doesn't happen, but That's the way it's going. So let's not let that happen here. Anyway, God bless you all for watching the show or listening to the program. And we want to thank TJ Roberts. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Bob. And we'll be back next week on Kentucky's Voice. Call the legislature, 800-372-7181.